A Week 12 pregame show edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign our promo code MACHINE to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rebet. Rebet is a new social sportsbook available in 45 different states. Download the Rebet app and use code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $100. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football and the NFL with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
And taking a shot to ground downfield. He makes the catch, and he gets in for the touchdown. The catch is made by Calvin Ridley. Wilson, what as he throws deep downfield. It's going to be caught by Metcalf.
Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast NFL Week 12 pregame show. Oh, the weeks are just flying by, but we're on to Week 12 here for the National Football League. 6 teams are on by this week, so, a little less games here to discuss, but maybe a little bit more in-depth that we can get into. But joining me, of course, here on the Week 12 pregame show on the Propcast, you guys know him as the voice of the NBA Gambling Podcast on the MLB Gambling Podcast, of course, as well. I got my guy here with me. It's Lonte Smith. Lonte, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. Another Sunday to bet the NFL in the best way we can. So I'm looking forward to breaking it down with you. Some interesting matchups. I guess from a player prop perspective, not more so from a matchup perspective. But yeah, I mean, it's always fun breaking this down with you.
Yeah, 100%, man. We came on last week, and I said, I think it was before we did the show, I was feeling really good about the card last week. This week, not so much. So maybe
same here.
But we'll navigate through it here for sure. I know some of these matchups are kind of we do have some big spreads. At least I think 3 out of the 4 games this week. But nonetheless, let's get into it here, man. We'll start here with the first game on the schedule. We'll go over to the Detroit Lions. They are in Indy to take on the Colts. Colts are catching 7.5 points in this game with a total of 50.5 here, Lonte. Anything you like in this game for props?
Yeah, a couple of them. So I'm pretty much going to ladder up Anthony Richardson's rushing props. So like 50, 60, 70. I'll even take it as high as 80. I just think it's a good matchup for him. Detroit obviously is really good. They were really good against the run, but with Hutchinson out, kind of rotating those guys in, they've been kind of susceptible to some quarterback runs. But we know their secondary is not top tier. They play a lot of man-to-man coverage, and I think they'll have to limit that man-to-man coverage to keep Anthony Richardson inside the pocket. I mean, he had 10 design runs last week. I think Steichen's going to be able to use his legs a little bit more. So anything Anthony Richardson wise, I think he'll be over as far as his rushing props. On the other side, we'll go with the other quarterback, Jared Goff, over 252.5 passing yards. If you look at some of the quarterbacks that that Indy has faced, we know they struggle against wide receiver ones. We know they struggle against the slot. Josh Allen, 280. Sam Darnold, 290. Stroud had 285. Trevor Lawrence had 371. Fields and Caleb Williams each had 300 plus on this defense. So I think that Jared Goff in a drop back passing game, I think it'll be a little bit more competitive than the point spread is indicating. And Jared Goff's been torching bad secondaries. If you look at what he did last week against Jacksonville, 400 yards. He had 280 versus Minnesota, 315 versus Dallas, 292 versus Seattle, and 307 versus Tampa. And I think this secondary falls in that similar category. So I think Jared Goff has a ton of success here. I like him over 252.5 passing yards.
Yeah, I couldn't talk you off. I mean, last week coming off he had 400 yards last week. Did Jared Goff? Yeah, I mean they didn't stop throwing the football. Did the Detroit Lions kind of in that bully mode? Are the Detroit Lions? So couldn't talk you off of that. The one that's been really good to me, or the past couple games, has been Jahmyr Gibbs' longest rush attempt to go over. That number right now is at 17.5. It's big for a reason, but I think I mentioned this last week. We talked about Jahmyr Gibbs, that he just has a second, third motor when he gets into that the second level of the defense. So, and again, we talked about early in the season where the Colts rush defense was really struggling, leveled off a little bit positively in their middle part of their games there, but I think they're right back to it being a bad rush defense. So I think in every which way, the Lions should be able to attack this defense of the Indianapolis Colts. So yeah, I do like that. I also go with Josh Downs. Josh Downs in this game, I believe he is their slot wide receiver there for the Indianapolis Colts. And those slot wide receivers have had a lot of success against the Detroit Lions. The number's at 58.5. I expect him to either have a big catch in this game or get over his yardage. Been doing very, very well for this Colts team ever since he did return from injury. Just looking at his numbers over the past couple of weeks here, 84 last week against the Jets, 72 against the Buffalo Bills, 60 against the Minnesota Vikings, and then he had 109 against my Texans. So 4 straight games that he's played in, he's gone up and over this number of 58.5. So I do really like that here for Josh Downs on the Colts side of things. 100% agree about what you mentioned about Anthony Richardson. I think that number one, the books are already reflecting that because his number is set at 43.5 in this game. But again, like I think it was last week, he had 70 plus, if I'm not mistaken, in that game against the Jets there, did Anthony Richardson. So yeah, I like that with you as well. If he plays any touchdown as well, couldn't talk you off of that for Anthony Richardson in this game. All right, let's get over to the next game here on the schedule. We'll go over to the Kansas City Chiefs. They are in Carolina to take on the Panthers. Chiefs currently laying 10.5 points in this game with a total of 43. Lonte, anything for Chiefs Panthers you like?
Yeah, I like a couple of things. So we'll start off with like the game state. I think a lot of sharp people I know like Carolina, so I think people are thinking it'll be a little bit more competitive here. I can kind of see Kansas City not really throwing the ball a ton, so I'm going to go under on pass attempts and yardage for Kansas City. I think they can be able to control the game by running, maybe some short passes and stuff like that. But I don't see them kind of airing it out. I mean, we see that the Kansas City offense just doesn't have that same like spark that they've had in previous years. Obviously down, multiple weapons. So I think there'll be kind of a ground and pound approach here. So I'm going to go under on Patrick Mahomes. Passing attempts and his passing. Do you have the exact number? My number is off from the open. So just want to get an accurate
passing
number.
Yards for Patrick Mahomes is set at 240.5, and attempts are set at 32.5.
Yeah, so we'll go under both of those. I mean, I think you can have like a right around 225 and still be comfortable. And Carolina's pass rush is getting a little bit healthier, but they still struggle defending the run. So I think we can see a ton of Hunt. A ton of is Pacheco back? I know he was slated to come back, but I think we're going to ease him back in.
Yeah, for who? I'm sorry,
Pacheco.
Yeah, so he's officially out this week. My anticipation is that he'll be back probably for that game on Black Friday against the Raiders. If not, I think definitely that following week.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so I think they'll use more of the short pass game and the run game with him. So I like those two. And on the other side, I like Bryce Young under 18.5 completions. That's at plus money if you shop around. I mean, he's only over once in his 5 starts. He's thrown under 30 times in back-to-back games. The game script could kind of, get us out of this, but I think they'll be able to move the ball. I think they'll be able to move the ball a little bit. I know Kansas City's defense is, it is what it is, but he's getting Thielen back. Obviously, a really good target over the middle. So I think they'll be able to move the ball a little bit. We saw the past few weeks that teams have been able to move the ball against this Kansas City defense. Maybe not on the ground, but kind of short pass here and there. And if it is a little bit closer, I think they'll lean more on Chuba Hubbard, whether they have success or not. So I like Bryce Young under that. This is a step down in class for the Kansas City pass defense. I mean, this is the weakest quarterback they faced all year. Yeah. So I think they'll be ready. And I think game script will work in our favor here. So I like under 18.5 at plus money.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the lower scoring games of the week. I think that the line at 43, if the Carolina Panthers are going to cover this game, it's going to have to be a lower scoring one. I don't know. I just don't trust this offense enough for the Carolina Panthers to, just go pound for pound against the Kansas City Chiefs. And Chiefs, I don't know. I don't say they're in a look-ahead spot, but it's going to be a shorter week for them this week. I do like Jatavion Sanders this week for the Carolina Panthers to go up and over his number of 20.5. This number opened at about 19.5 of the 20.5 now. I mean, look, I think that if the Chiefs get out to a lead here, I still think they're going to have to be thrown from behind or even have to throw this game to have any type of success. The Panthers offense, we know the Chiefs defense, like the Ravens defense, the rush defense in particular, I should say, has been very, very good this season. So I think so. Some of these wide receivers I like that have lower totals, like 20.5. Jatavion Sanders. I think that is a worth look here for me. Thielen does return this week for the Carolina Panthers. Not sure how effective he's going to be, or if he's going to be on some type of snap count or a limit there. So I wanted to stay away from him. I mean, his numbers at 27.5, heavily juiced towards the under. So I think the books are kind of indicating that he may not get a whole heck of a lot of action in this game. All right, Lonte, let's keep it rolling here. We've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are taking on the New York Giants in this game. Of course, we have Tommy DeVito going to start here for the New York Giants. Giants are catching 6.5 points in this game with a total of 40.5 here. Lonte, anything you like for Bucks Giants?
Don't like a lot about the Giants. I could tell you that right now. I could tell you that right now. But yeah, one thing that I did like. Let me just get back. I like Kate Otten under 44.5 receiving yards. Mike Evans is active, correct? I know he's questionable, but I think he's leaning towards active. Yeah, so he has drastic splits whenever Evans plays versus when he doesn't. If you just look at the first few weeks, I'm not granted that could have been kind of getting implemented into a new system with a new offensive coordinator, but we saw a lot of his success come when Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were both out. So the Giants really good against tight ends. They've been really good against tight ends as of late, something they haven't been good against historically. So I think they lock up on K. Dotton. So I like him under 44.5 receiving yards. I mean, on the Giants side, I don't think you can bet anything on that side. I mean, Neighbors is questionable with a groin.
Yeah,
not sure if he goes. I would probably not have him go, to be honest. I mean, that's one of your future pieces that you don't want to go out there and further injure that, mess up that groin. So I'm staying a little bit light on this one. So I like K. Dotton under 44.5 receiving yards though.
Yeah, it's just we don't know, especially what we're going to get out of Tommy DeVito in this game, right? I mean, it's going to come out and fling the football all over the field, or do we see a heavy dose of Tyrone Tracy Jr. For this Giants team? And I think I did see that Neighbors said himself that he was going to play in this game. And I do see his props listed. I think the number was, let me see, 61.5. It was bouncing from 58.5 to 61.5. The updated number right now is at 59.5. Theo Johnson is a guy you probably want to target in this game. You mentioned how great the Giants have been against tight ends. The Buccaneers have not been very good against tight ends. So if you want to take a look at that, his number's at 21.5. And I've just struggled this season, really just trying to find a gauge on the running back rotation for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just because we know they've been going, at minimum 2 deep with Rashad White and Bucky Irving, sometimes even 3 guys in that rotation. Yep. But even, Todd Bowles just came out and said, whoever in their offensive coordinator, whoever has a hot hand, we're going to, ride with that player. But so I really couldn't get there with either one of those guys. I wanted to get with you mentioned with Neighbors, but again, that groin injury is very, very concerning. So it's a complete stay away from me. And I know there's been some steam and money coming in on the Mike Evans over prop. I think it's opened up at 53.5. Now it's up to 57.5 for Mike Evans in this game. But
probably still too low.
I honestly, yeah. I think he's still on the march to get to 1,000 receiving yards in this game to make it, for every single season in his career. So I wish there was like updated numbers for that. Maybe we could find that. That would be a fun problem to get down on for the rest of the season. Yeah. Last one I'll throw out there here, Lonte, for this game. Baker Mayfield over 13.5 rushing yards. Look, we know he's not the fastest guy in the room. It's at 11.5 currently over on DraftKings, but we usually see him take off, and whether it's 4 attempts, I mean, he's done a pretty good job of getting those long rush attempts to get up and over his number. I know I was looking at Rhythm earlier. Shout out to our partners, Rhythm. They do like the over on his rushing yards as well. So yeah, Baker Mayfield over 11.5 rushing yards for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You got anything else for Bucks Giants?
No, that's it. Horrible game though.
Yeah. Speaking of horrible games, let's get over to the other 2 teams in the NFC East. The Dallas Cowboys. They are taking on the Commanders. 10.5 point spread here in favor of the Washington Commanders. Total of 45 in this game. Cowboys also are going to be on a very short week. They play on Thanksgiving Day as usual against the New York Giants. But right now, 10.5 in favor of Commanders, 45 total. Any player props you like in this game?
Love Jaden Daniels rushing yards here. 10 days rest. He's been a little bit more reluctant he was a little bit more reluctant to run before that injury against the Panthers. I think he got injured versus the Panthers. Yeah. So with those 10 days off, I think that absolutely helps him with the injury. I mean, he had 10 for 23 the last 2 weeks, lowest of any 2 weeks combined, whether that's carries and yardage. and he's over in 7 of 11, including that game where he got hurt. I think he had 50 yards before he left. But if you look at some of the QBs that have faced Dallas, I mean, Stroud had 26, which, I mean, Stroud's not a runner, but he can run. But Stroud had 26, Hurts 56, Purdy 56. Fields struggled a little bit with 27. Lamar had 87. Deshaun Watson had 39. So they've, quarterbacks have been able to run here, and I think we see a little bit more design runs early on. I wish we could take it like a first half rushing yards prop, because I think once the game kind of gets away from, which is what I think the point spread is kind of indicating that the game's going to get away from Dallas. Once that gets away from them, I don't think they'll put him in harm's way to kind of further injure that, those ribs. So I think he can get this early on, like first half. So I like over 37.5. That's minus 120 on that. But I do maybe ladder that up to like 50 plus as well.
Our friends over at Underdog Fantasy usually have first half projections. They have 19.5 for his first half rushing yards. If you want to go,
give me 2 units on that. Yeah.
If you want to go higher on that, over at Underdog Fantasy. Again, good reminder, Underdog Fantasy, get over there, use that promo code machine, get yourself signed up. A 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. So Lonte is definitely going to have that first half higher 19.5 rushing yards for Jaden Daniels in this game. There's been a lot of love for Brian Robinson Jr. this week, and rightfully so. The rush defense for the Cowboys has just been atrocious, to say the least. We saw what Joe Mixon was able to do last week, 109 rushing yards for him against the Cowboys. We saw Saquon, Will Shipley, Kenneth Gainwell combined for 130. Bijan Robinson, 19 for 86. Isaac Garindo of the 49ers had 14 for 85. And then Sonic and Knuckles, David Montgomery, and Jahmyr Gibbs combined for 143 in that game as well against the Cowboys. So 74.5 is a number right now. I don't think we've seen this high of a number for Brian Robinson Jr., but again, it's because he's going up against the Cowboys rush defense in this game. One more I'll throw out you, I like for the Commander side as well. Austin Eckler receiving yards. I mean, that's just been a really good proposition this week, or this season, I should say. If you don't want to maybe get on that for his receiving yards, I think that he's the type of guy that could get this done in one catch. So if you want to take his longest reception, to go over, I think that's a good pivot. That number's at 12.5. So I think that the receptions were set at 2.5 for him. So I think that, again, anytime I'm typically looking at receiving yards, especially for running backs, I usually just double up. I take the longest reception to go over, and then I take their yardage to go over. A lot of times than not, you'll see them get over their full game receiving yards number in one catch, so you can catch both of those at the same time. I typically try to do this when I see like 12.5 or less. For those type of guys, I think I don't know if it was last week, Lonte, or the week before, I mentioned Raheem Mostert to get up and over his. I think he had his first catch was 9 yards, and it was set at 7.5 and 6.5 for his longest reception. So that's kind of how I attack it. Kind of pull back the curtain there. You buying anything into the Noah Brown revenge game? Maybe.
I mean, maybe, but like I don't think they'll have to attack through the air. Yeah, I think they'll be able to. I mean, and to your point, I think with Eckler, they could short pass him to death. I would look at him maybe like longest receptions or something like that. Yep. But I think once it gets out of hand, then you're just going to be handing the ball off to Brandon Robinson or Brian Robinson and the backup. I would look for Jeremy McNichols to score a touchdown, because I think he might get some carries late, and that could be beneficiary to that. I mean, he could see a ton of volume in the second half if this indeed gets away from them.
Yeah, I agree. Jake Ferguson is out for this game for the Dallas Cowboys. He's out with, I believe it's a concussion. So I'm looking at Luke Schoonmaker, man. He came in last week. He filled in very, very nicely for the Dallas Cowboys tight end position there. Of course, they were trailing from behind in that game against the Texans. But he got 10 targets in that game last week against the Texans, 6 receptions, 56 yards. His number this week, longest reception, is set at just had it in front of me. Where do you go? Let me switch tabs here. 14.5, but his receiving props, if you just want to take the receiving yards for him, that's going to be set at 27.5 in this game here as well. I'm curious to see why Turpin number is so low. I know he had that big catch last week, but I feel like he hasn't really maybe done much as far as the passing game goes on offense. Didn't have anything against the Eagles, but he had 36 against the Falcons, 16 receiving yards against the Niners, 24 against the Detroit Lions. So that could be a sneaky prop here for Kevontae Turpin. His numbers only
like
set
that.
2.5. I think that's a guy that could get that done in one catch,
Yeah,
honestly.
definitely.
Yeah. You got anything else for Cowboys Commanders?
Nope, just don't watch it. It's gonna be terrible.
I think this is the game that might be on Fox today, at least where I am locally. Yeah. All right, let's get over to speaking of the Tennessee Titans. They are here in Houston, take on the Texans. Texans are laying 8 points in this game with a total of 40.5 here. Lonte, anything for Titans Texans?
Another not so attractive game. Jesus. I like Tony Pollard under 58.5 rushing yards. 58.5 rushing yards. He's under in back-to-back games combined, 18 carries in that span. He struggles more against the better rush defenses. A lot of his success has come against poor rush defenses. I think he had like one of the biggest games against Detroit. I think he had 100 yards. And I think he had 90 against the Jets. So yeah, I think he feasts on more so of the bad defenses, and he struggles to get going against the good defense. I think Houston classifies as a good defense. They're getting a lot of those guys are back healthy. They got the green dot back. Will Anderson is back, correct?
Oh, that's a great question. I haven't seen an update on him. Let me see. I think he was back at practice, if I'm not mistaken. But
I know they got the other I know they got the other linebacker back, but I think they're trending. The defense is trending back up to where they were initially before those injuries started piling up. So I think they'll be able to load up the box and force Levis to kind of beat them, which is been a recipe for success for other teams. So I don't think Pollard sees a lot of. I don't think he sees a lot of touches. I don't think he sees a lot of success on those touches. So I like him under.
Yeah, Will Anderson is back this week for the Texans. So getting him back next to Danielle Hunter is going to be a fun thing to watch. And just getting this Texans, honestly, the defense really, really healthy, going as we enter the latter part of the season here. The one I did like for this side for the Texans, at least, John Mechie over on his receiving yards. We saw an interview or press conference, I should say, with the Texans offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick. And, he's mentioned John Mechie and how he sees the opportunity when he is on the field. And obviously without Stephon Diggs, that somebody else has to step up outside of Tank Dell and Nico Collins. And John Mechie has really fit that mold here for the Texans. His number was at 19.5. I really do like that this week for him. I think that, he's going to continue getting his looks and just making the most of the targets. Another guy that does have a breakout speed as well. So it's just a fact about him, finishing routes. I know there's a couple times over the previous weeks where he's kind of slowed down and not finished a route. But last 2 weeks, Lonte, 74 receiving yards against the Lions. He had 33 on 3 targets and 3 receptions for the Texans against the Cowboys last week. So I think that this could be another game where he can get at least 3 to 4 targets, get up and over this number of 19.5. And honestly, I think that he could probably get that done in one catch as well. Just looking at his long receptions over the last 2 weeks, 16 against the Dallas Cowboys, 25 against the Detroit Lions. And if you want to go a couple weeks back against the Indianapolis Colts, he had a long reception of 28 for the Texans. So that's the one I'll be sweating out here when I'm watching my Texans here this afternoon. You got anything else?
No, that's a good look though. I might add that to my card. That's a good look.
All right, let's get over to the Patriots and the Dolphins. Dolphins currently laying 7.5 in Miami, hosting the Patriots. Total is sitting at 46 in this game. I want to check one injury while you give your player props here, Lonte.
Yeah, man. I know we're just kind of beating dead horse, but another horrible game. So I think you got to have some player props to enjoy this slate today. But I like Devon Achane over 66.5 rushing yards. I think that's way too low. If you look at what the Patriots defense has been doing against running back ones, 8 of the last 9 running backs have gone over this number, including Mostert and Wright for Miami in week 5. They both had 80 plus yards. I think 18 was banged up. Either he was banged up or he got banged up early on in that game. I can't remember. I can't remember exactly what happened, but either way, both of those backs had success as well as other backs have faced New England. He's over this number in 4 of the last 5, and that's with limited carries. I don't think he has 20 plus carries in either of those last 5 games. he should see a heavy dose against his bad rush defense. So I'm going to ladder Devon Achane up to 100 plus. I think he has a really good day on the ground, and obviously you don't want to drop Tua back to put him in harm's way. So I think handing the ball off to Achane or short pass to him. So if you want to take his rush receiving, I think that's probably a good look as well. I'm just going to attack it from the rushing yards perspective. I think he has a big day. I mean, he could literally get this in like 4 or 5 carries.
Yeah, if you also want to take a look at his longest rush attempts go over, I really couldn't talk you off of that for Devon Achane. He's been one of the guys we've talked a lot about throughout the season here on the Propcast, more so because of me on his receiving yards, but that number has been really priced out by the market now. I think it was a couple of weeks ago I saw it up to 45.5 when we were getting it at like 23.5, 24.5 early in the season. Again, he was just crushing the number just because he was getting the targets from Tua. But yeah, good matchup here this week for him against the Patriots rush defense that's given up 117 yards per game on the ground, 4.67 yards per carry, 25 attempts per game are teams running against the New England Patriots. So I was looking at Christian Gonzalez if he was going to be able to go in this game. I know he's dealing with a hip injury. I think the indication is that he is going to be able to go in this game, but how effective is he going to be and who's he going to be lined up against is going to be my big question. So maybe this is going to be a game where I take a look at who is he lined up on defensively.
Probably Cheetah. Probably.
You think so?
Yeah, okay, I mean he shadowed him in the prior matchups that he's actually played when they've matched up against each other. That's who he's been against. That's who he's been lined up against, and he had success against them as well. So maybe if you want to look at Waddle, you want to pivot to Waddle. Yeah,
that was going to be my thing. That's whoever he's matched up on, I probably want to go to the other guy. If he was on Hill, then I go to Waddle. If he's on Waddle, then I look at Hill. But yeah, if you're mentioning that he's going to be lined up on Hill this game, that I'll probably want to look at Waddle. His number's at 39.5 in this game for him.
I need him for my fantasy team.
Yeah, we've talked about this throughout the season with him. I know I don't know if he's dealing with an injury or something that's nagging him, but
yeah, he doesn't look the same. Yeah, he
doesn't. It's not the same guy that we've seen. Yeah, early part of his career over the last several seasons. So,
at all.
Yeah, maybe this might be the week where he does break out. Hunter Henry, the other guy I was looking at, at least for the offensive side, for the New England Patriots, he's just been one of their more consistent guys throughout the season. I think he's becoming one of Drake May's favorite targets. He's had 6 targets in for the last 5 weeks, 92 against the Jags, 45 against the Jets, 56 against the Titans, only had 14 against the Bears the last week against the Rams. 6 receptions, 9 targets, 63 receiving yards there for Hunter Henry. So if you want to take a look at him, his number right now is sitting at 44.5, currently over on DraftKings. All right, Lonte, let's keep it moving here. The Minnesota Vikings, they are in the Windy City to take on the Bears. Bears currently catching 3 points in this game with a total of 39.5. Anything for Vikings, Bears?
Yeah, 2 of my favorite ones on the slate. And this is actually might be a decent game. So I like DJ Moore over 47.5 receiving yards. I'll be laddering that up as well. Minnesota, good defense, but they have struggled. They've allowed 100+ yard receiver in 5 of their last 7. He's getting the targets and even the receptions, but he's not getting much after the catch. So if you look at the games, he's had 4+ receptions 7 times, and he was over in those games that he had over this number in those games in 4 of those 7 when he sees 4 or more receptions. So I think you'll see a ton of targets here. Caleb should be able to spread it around, get the ball out of his hand quicker. We saw Thomas Brown kind of implementing that, getting the ball out quick. And I think DJ Moore will be the recipient of a ton of those early success. If he can get, make one or 2 guys miss, he's off to the races. So I think he can soar over this number. I'll be taking his ladder as well. And we'll go on the other side with the running back, Aaron Jones, over 61.5 rushing yards. That's -15. I also like his carries over 14.5. That's -20. If you want to just same game parlay those together, you can do like 15+ and like 60+ and get a nice plus price on that. Chicago, 30th rush defense DVOA. If you look at what running back ones have done against him, they're averaging about 76 yards against his defense. 88 if you filter out Mixon, who was maybe you can help me out with this. Was Mixon hurt in that game, or was he kind of just limited in what he could do when they played the Texans? I'm unsure about what happened. He only had I think 6 carries in that game. You remember that game by any chance?
The one against the Vikings?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that was the game where he got hurt, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay,
or sorry, against the Bears.
The Bears.
That was the game. Yeah, that was the game where we got that hip.
Okay. So he was
tackle.
out. Yeah. So basically
he was out for almost a month.
Yeah. So those numbers look a little bit better. Like it's 76 overall versus them. But if you back out Mixon, who was hurt, and then ETN didn't play I think he only had 1 carry. If you back out those numbers, they're averaging close to 90 yards a game versus this defense. So the running back ones have also averaged 18 carries in the last 4 versus Chicago. So I think we see a heavy dose of Aaron Jones, who has been kind of up and down, or a lot more down than up as of late. So I think he has a breakout game here against his rush defense.
Yeah, my third player probably, this week was Aaron Jones over on his receiving yards. 15.5 was the number that I got. But I mean, historically, I know against this Bears team that he's very familiar with, obviously being with the Packers for so long, he's just absolutely crushed his number when it comes to his receiving yards. I think that he'll continue being involved in the offense here as far as, in the passing game with, Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings. I know last 2 weeks hasn't really been there for Aaron Jones, the air. But I think this is a good week for him to kind of get back to being involved in that passing game for the Minnesota Vikings. So I do like that for him this week. I don't think that they have – I think, this is the first meeting between these two squads being in the same division. But, I mean, historically, he's been really good. Obviously, I know it's a different team when he was with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, but Aaron Jones has been one of the more reliable guys when it comes to both rushing and receiving yards, more importantly, for this game here. So, good week for him to get back on track. 7 career touchdowns as well, I'll mention, for Aaron Jones against the Chicago Bears. Yes, for the Bears side, I don't think I had anything I really loved. Sorry, I do. I'm not bad. Caleb Williams to throw an interception in this game. This number was at plus odds earlier in the week here, Lonte, for Caleb Williams to throw an interception against the Minnesota Vikings. Trying to see if the updated number. I know this was jumps. Yeah, now it's up to minus 120, but I still love it at that price. So the Vikings have intercepted every single quarterback this season, except for one, which was Jared Goff. I think it was like week 4 or 5, but every single quarterback the Minnesota Vikings defense has intercepted. And I know this number was at plus odds to open this week because Caleb Williams hasn't thrown an interception in 4 straight weeks, or 4 straight games, I should say. But Brian Flores' defense, I think, is going to really have Caleb Williams in hell this game, or at least force him to make a mistake and throw that interception. So I really do like it here for Caleb Williams to throw that interception. But also did like his yardage to go over. The number has moved against me. It was at 201.5. It got up to 203.5, and then I guess there was some buyback on the under for him. The number was at 199.5 earlier this week. It's back up to 204.5 now. So, so Caleb Williams interception. And again, something we talked about the Chiefs early, and then with the Ravens rush defense as well. The Minnesota Vikings rush defense has been really good, and they've been forcing quarterbacks to throw the football. So if you guys should look at the numbers for quarterbacks against the Vikings this season, I mean, they've been forcing teams to throw the football. So I think that kind of bodes well for me that, hey, I like his passing yards to go over for Caleb Williams. But then if there is a mistake that he does make in there, that he does throw an interception, that's just going to go along well here for me. Vikings pass defense is allowing close to 258 passing yards per game. The only 3 quarterbacks, I should say, Mac Jones a couple weeks ago, I'm not going to take much away from that. That was like his first start of the season, and that was that ugly 12-7 victory for the Vikings. Joe Flacco, 179, and then Daniel Jones early in the season. So, I mean, those are the 3 worst quarterbacks, at least this season. I mean, Daniel Jones, he's been bad, but I don't think he's been as bad as people are advertising. But nonetheless, he's still giving up, or I should say the Vikings pass defense giving up 258 passing yards per game. Got anything else for Vikings Bears?
Nope, that's it.
All right, let's get over to the 4:00 window. We've got the Denver Broncos. They are in Vegas to take on the Raiders. Broncos laying 5.5 points in this game with a total of 41.5. Excuse me. Anything you like in this game, Broncos Raiders?
Another ugly game. I have absolutely nothing. I have no idea.
All these division games are ugly this week.
Yeah. I don't know what to do with this game. I was keyed in on a Cortland Sutton under and a Devon Vele over, just because
I like Vele over
because the Raiders play a ton of man-to-man coverage. Nate Hobbs, who is their best slot corner, he's out. They do defend the bigger receivers a little bit better, so the downfield stuff, but underneath is where they struggle at with their linebackers and stuff like that. So I didn't pull the trigger on it, but that would be only thing I would play would be Cortland Sutton under and Devon Vele over. I mean, maybe you can expand on the Vele prop, but I would probably just ladder him up because he can get this, 3 or 4 catches. He might can get, 70 plus if you want to ladder him up. So I can kind of see the success there. But the reason I say it off is because, Denver's got a bevy of backs that they can just run the ball against this front and short passes. So, yeah, I didn't play it, but that's one of the ones those are 2 of the ones that I was looking at that I didn't play.
Yeah, Vele's been getting more involved in the offense for the Denver Broncos. You mentioned Courtland Sutton. He's been really, really great since that Saints game back a few weeks ago on Thursday Night Football. But Vele's been getting a little bit. The numbers aren't there for him, but I think his average yards per catch has been. It's what's making his numbers look really good, and he's been a great down the field threat for this Denver Broncos offense. And look, if Courtland Sutton has a slow game, I think Devon Bailey is the guy that can, pick up the production there for this Denver Broncos team. His number opened up at 31.5. That's when I bet it. I think I saw it creeping up to 32.5. Let me see the updated number right now for him. Oh, where is he? Yeah, it's still at 32.5. So yeah, I would definitely like him in this game. And I'll go with the other side with the Raiders, man. Brock Bowers, he's just been really, really good to me this season. Last week, coming off a career high game, or at least one of the best games of the season against the Dolphins last week. He had, I think it was 11 receptions for 126 receiving yards in that game. I think that could translate in this game here against the Denver Broncos. These two teams met earlier this season. 13 receptions, I should say, last week. Don't want to discredit him for 126 receiving yards. But Brock Bowers earlier this season against the Denver Broncos, 12 targets, 8 receptions, 97 yards, and a touchdown in that game there against the Broncos. Back-to-back weeks, Lonte, he's also put together a receiving touchdown for the Raiders offense. So, yeah, I do like Brock Bowers this week, and I do like Devon Bailey for the Denver Broncos side of things, and then Brock Bowers for the Raiders side of things. So those are the 2 I did have in this game. You got anything else for this game?
Nope, I don't.
All right, let's go with the San Francisco 49ers. They are in Lambeau Field to take on the Packers. Packers currently laying 5.5 points in this game with a total of 44.5.
Yeah, it was 47 before that injury.
Yeah.
That rock injury. Yeah.
Yeah. Number is now up to -6 in favor of the Packers. Obviously, the big news in this game, no Nick Bosa, no Brock Purdy, more importantly for the 49ers on the offensive side. So it will be Brandon Allen getting the start here for the San Francisco 49ers. Big game. I think more so for the 49ers because that NFC West has just been it's just been fun to watch week to week. But they dropped this game. It might be a tall hill to climb until the end of the season if they want to have a shot at the playoffs, which is crazy to say for this Niners team. But you got anything for Niners Packers?
Yeah, this was supposed to be a great game. But I think 2 things happen. I think we see a ton of Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield. So I would look at his rush receiving yards over. Green Bay rush defense is pretty weak. They've had a 90-plus yard rusher in 6 of the last 9. Dual threat backs have had extreme success against them. So I'm looking at Christian McCaffrey over his rush receiving yards. You have an updated number on that? I know the number kind of moved whenever he. So my number is a little off.
Let me see. Let's go to the receiving side of things. Rushing, receiving. Sorry, it's probably under rushing. Oh, yeah, here we go. All right. CMC rushing and receiving set at. Scroll down here. CMC. Where are you? 111.5.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I still like that. I played it at like 113, so it's still some value there. So, I think he has a monster day. I think they're going to keep it simple for Allen. A lot of check downs, a lot of underneath stuff. So I think Christian McCaffrey is a prime candidate to get a ton of that volume. On the other side, I like Tucker Kraft over 30.5 receiving yards, -15. He was catchless last week. It's a good bounce back spot for him. Over in 6 of 10. He was over in 3 straight prior to last week. San Francisco is usually good against tight ends, but Fred Warner's been kind of slipping on his coverage as of late. So I think Tucker Kraft can have some success here over the middle of the field, especially with him not having a catch last week. I think they'll try to we've seen guys go targetless and catchless, and then the next week they're the focal point early on. So I can kind of see him getting over this number in the first quarter and a half with Love being there. So yeah, I like him over 30.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, I didn't have much for this game. Again, it'll just be curious to see how Brandon Allen comes out, but I think you're correct that we'll see a heavy dose of Christian McCaffrey. So I wouldn't be able to talk you off his receiving yards in this game for Christian McCaffrey. I mean, we could probably see like screen passes or check downs from Brandon Allen just to kind of get his feet wet, take a hit, just kind of get maybe the butterflies out, especially playing in Lambeau Field there. Receiving yards right now for Christian McCaffrey set at 31.5. Couldn't talk you off of that, but yeah, that's the only one I was really looking at for this game. Really haven't played a lot of Packer player props, honestly, this season. Just don't know which receivers going to step up on any given week.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
for this team, just because they have a lot of depth there, right? Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Dobbs, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a good problem to have if you're the Packers, I would say. All right, Lonte, let's get over to the NFC West game of the week. The Arizona Cardinals, they are in Seattle, take on the Seahawks. Depending on the book, it's either at a pick'em or it's -1 in favor of the Cardinals here. Total is sit at 46.5 in this game. Anything for Cardinals Seahawks?
Yeah, so let's see. I think it's a really good game. This is one of the better games on the slate today. I'm gonna go with Geno Smith over 257.5 passing yards. It's -15. Arizona bottom 5 in pass rush win rate, so he should have some time to throw the ball. It's a step up in class from the previous quarterbacks that faced by Arizona. I think they faced the Jets and Chicago. So Geno Smith, obviously, a notch above both of those quarterbacks as it currently stands. And when they face quarterbacks that are pretty competent, I mean, the quarterbacks have had success through the air. Geno's actually over in 4 of his 6 at home on a high volume attempts as well. I think the secondary can be had for Arizona, especially with not a lot of pressure on Geno. So I think Geno has a really big day today. I'll probably ladder him up to 300. I think he has a big day, along with DK Metcalf as well.
Yeah, I couldn't talk you off of that. Curious to see what his passing touchdowns is in this game here.
Should be low. He had 2 of the last 3 where he didn't throw a touchdown at all. But in between that, he had 3 touchdowns in that one game. So it could be like 1.5. It could be getting plus money on that 1.5.
It's 1.5 around -120 is the best number I see. But last 3 matchups against the Cardinals head-to-head, he's had at least he's had 2 passing touchdowns in each of those 3 games there. But like you mentioned, I think that he's going to get that time to throw the football in this game. Jackson Smith and Jigba has really come on for this Seahawks. I'm just trying to pull up his numbers. Seahawks offense, last 2 games for him, 180 yards against the Rams, 2 touchdowns, 110 receiving yards, 10 receptions for him against the Niners last week. He's had at least 6 receptions in 3 straight weeks there. So if you want to take a look at his receptions in this game, I know, again, some of that had to do obviously without DK Metcalf being out there. But I think Metcalf was back last week and he still had a really good game for the Seattle Seahawks. So maybe, Geno Smith is trying to look for him a little bit more this season, or at least in the past couple games. 57.5 is the number on his receiving yards in this game. Wouldn't be able to talk you off of that. I want to play the James Conner rushing yards in this game, but I'm a little bit leery when it comes to teams coming off of a bye week, just because they probably know that their rush defense has been really bad and they've maybe made those adjustments. So that one was one I was considering here, but I think I'll lay off. At least just want to see if the Seahawks rush defense continues to be bad. And then maybe, either live bet opportunity for James Conner or come back next week and play the running back against the Seattle Seahawks. So that'll be something I'll be watching in this game for the Seattle Seahawks rush defense. Trey McBride, I think, is another guy I want to look at in this game. I know he was a fantasy darling coming into the season. Has lived up to expectations. I know he missed a couple games, or I think he had a concussion, if I'm not mistaken, for the Cardinals. But I think he should have a big role in this game here for the Cardinals against the Seahawks. So those were the ones I was looking at in this game here for Cardinals and Seahawks. All right, let's get over to the primetime games. Sunday night football, the Philadelphia Eagles, they are in LA, to take on the Rams. I think the SGPN brass is going to be at this game, of course. But looking at the spread, the Eagles are laying 3 points in this game with a total of now, I think it's up to 50 now, if I'm not mistaken. There's more money coming in on the over. Actually, I'm sorry, down to 48.5 right now for Eagles Rams. But Lots, you got anything for Eagles Rams?
I'm gonna be honest, it's a great game. I don't have much player prop wise. I think the numbers were pretty good. I think the Eagles defense is trending up. I think the Rams defense is underrated. I also think that both offenses are so I'll put it like this. I think the Eagles offense is a little bit like Jekyll and Hyde. I don't think it's as good. Devontae Smith is out, so you're going to be, you can roll that covers to AJ Brown now, and you're going to have to force, the tight ends to kind of beat you. So I stayed away, to be honest. I think it's going to be a great game, but I stayed away player prop wise, unless you got something for me.
I think the only one I would target on the Eagles side without Devontae Smith is going to be Dallas Goedert for this Eagles team. He's stepped up. Usually when you see AJ Brown that's out, or Devontae Smith, or maybe even both guys being out, but I think it's a good opportunity for him. The Eagles secondary has been absolutely brilliant over the last 3 weeks, especially since they came off their bye week. I wanted to get there with Cooper Kupp in this game, whether it was receptions or whether it was receiving yards in this game here for him. But it just makes me a little bit nervous taking overs on those guys with how great the Eagles secondary has been playing. Yeah, but I just know that Stafford, when he has those two guys out there, like only those two guys are all getting all the targets. Like one player is going to go to Kupp, the other one go to Nakua. Nakua again back to Kupp. So I know the targets for those guys are going to be in double digits.
Yeah. They got their work cut out for them. That secondary got their work cut out for them.
Yeah. So that's something I'll keep an eye on. That's something I was looking at in this game, but I just couldn't get to the quite there to the window with. Outside of that, I think that yeah, you're right. It's gonna be a really good game. I just maybe something transpires throughout the day for me in this game, but on surface right now, at least for the show here, I didn't want to give out anything that I haven't bet yet. All right, Monday Night Football. I know got some time here, Lonte. Ravens Chargers, the Harbaugh Bowl. Yeah. Ravens laying 2.5, total 50.5. Anything you've looked at for this game yet?
Good game, man. Really good game. I'm looking at a lot of unders. I'm looking at Justin Herbert under his passing yards, over his rushing yards though. Been using his legs a lot more here. Little revenge narrative. I mean, obviously the narratives are all over the place. You got Greg Roman there. You got obviously the Harbaughs. You got J.K. Dobbins playing against his former team. Like, it's a lot of different narratives and stories that you could tell with this game. I didn't have much, man, outside of the Herbert stuff. And then I'll be looking at J.K. Dobbins under, because I don't think that the Ravens I don't think they've allowed – yeah. I mean, but the Ravens' rush defense is really strong. I think they struggle with the pass defense. So I would look for, Justin Herbert to have a ton of attempts, but not more so rushing. Like, I don't think the rushing game is going to be there for him. So I'll look at J.K. Dobbins under his rushing yards here. That's probably my favorite. If I had to have a favorite, that would be my favorite one. J.K. Dobbins rushing yards under.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. We talked about, right, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Vikings. Like, those are three teams where I want to look at the running backs that they're going up against to take the under. I think more so with the Ravens. I think there hasn't been a single running back that has gotten over 55 rushing yards as a single performer against the Ravens. And that's really incredible. That type of rush defense to do that. They're only giving up 61 on the ground. I think last week was the first week where Najee got up and over that number, that golden number of 55, where he had 63 on 18 carries. But outside of that, it's really been guys that they've just been flying under the number. Collectively as a group, yes, there has been running backs that do get up and over this number, but that rush defense has been absolutely incredible. 3.29 yards per carry that they're only giving up. The Herbert one, I was looking at the over on his passing yards. I know you mentioned the under there, but I think it's just the fact that he's going to have to throw the football, right? And I think if you want to take a look at Lad McConkey, I know he's dealing with shoulder injury, if I'm not mistaken, but he's been pretty good for them. Quentin Johnson, longest reception to go over in that game. I think that's worth a look here as well for the Chargers side of things. For the Ravens, Lamar typically just shows up in primetime games. So if you want to look at his rushing yards to go over, Zay Flowers, I think he's slowed down a couple over the past couple.
I was looking at Bateman.
Yeah, Bateman, I took a season-long under on him just because he's been bad, but he's proven me wrong this season. I think it's good for him to, kind of finally come out and produce for this team. So maybe this might be the Zay Flowers game where he, gets back to what we saw a few weeks ago. But other than that, I really didn't have much for this Chargers-Ravens game. Again, it is on Monday night, so maybe something does transpire from now until that time. So still plenty of time there. All right, that was the last game of the week for week 12. Let's put together our touchdown parlay for this week. No thank you to David Njoku last week.
Oh my God. He got the 2-point conversion though, but not the
He got it again on Thursday Night Football. He dropped a touchdown on Thursday Night Football, but he got the 2-point conversion again for the Browns there. So another week where we got 3 out of 4, but
man, killing around Robin. Killing around Robin just can't.
Oh yeah, Rob Robbins, for sure.
Especially at some of
the odds that we've been giving out.
Yeah.
All right, Lonte, where do you want to start this week, man? I like Mike Evans. I don't know if you agree with that one.
I do.
He's at
I do
plus
agree
135.
I do agree with that. I really do.
All right, Evans. I'll throw him in there.
What is Aaron Jones? Is he at plus money? He's probably not.
Doubt it, but let me see if I can see. Plus 130.
Let's get it. I love it. I love it. I love Aaron Jones this week.
All right, Aaron Jones we'll throw in there. All right, Evans, Jones. Who else do we like?
What about tight end? What do you think about Kelsey?
Kelsey, what's his number? Kelsey. They're at the top of the list here.
I'll say Kelsey or Henry. I know you like Henry. I like Henry as well.
Derrick Henry's gonna be like minus like 3.
No. I mean Hunter Henry.
Oh,
tight
Henry.
end.
Oh yeah. Hunter Henry is plus 220. Let's throw him in there.
Yeah, I like him. What is Jonathan?
What about Anthony Richardson?
I love Anthony Richardson. Love him to get
He's
in his zone.
Plus odds.
Yeah, throw him in there as well. Love that. Is Achane is not plus odds, is he? We might have like 6 players to put in here.
Achane is
probably like minus 120 or something like that.
Minus 245.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay.
So we'll go with those 4 there. A little lighter this week, but we're getting close. All right. So our touchdown parlay for this week, it will be Mike Evans, Aaron Jones. Oh, not Jawan Jennings. Let me fix that. I got to put in Anthony Richardson in there.
Jawan Jennings probably will get an end zone though.
Yeah, they have Christian McCaffrey at minus 135 this week.
I'm going to bet that personally.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to bet that personally.
All right. So this week we'll go Mike Evans, we'll go Aaron Jones, Anthony Richardson, and Hunter Henry. That gets you to around plus 40, 50. We'll round it to 41 to 1, depending on the book here. But this is just off of DraftKings odds. So again, Mike Evans, Aaron Jones, Anthony Richardson, and Hunter Henry for our touchdown parlay for this.
If we get Hunter Henry in there, I think we're good to go. I think
as soon as I announced that, it just dropped down to 39.64. So somebody's watching the show here, or at least maybe round robining them for this week.
Yeah.
All right. So that's going to do it here for this NFL Week 12 pregame show, part of the Propcast. Not the most exciting matchups this week, but hopefully we did find some winners as far as our player props do go for the game here. But Lonte, anything else you want to mention, my man, before we get out of here?
No, that's it, man. I hope everybody has a good one. I mean, ugly game, so player props is where you want to attack this slate. It's tough slate.
Yeah, 100%. So hopefully we do have a profitable week for the player props this week. Make sure you guys get over to the Sports Gambling Podcast pregame show with Sean and Kramer. They'll take your calls, they'll take your plays, they'll put together their DFS entries, underdog fantasy entry. I'm sure Kramer will give out his first half parlay. I'm sure they have some touchdown and other fun parlays for you there as well. So They'll go live in about 5 minutes here for their show. So you just get over there. Gambling podcast, sports gambling podcast on their YouTube there. So it's going to be going live in about 4 minutes here. All right, make sure you guys follow Lonte over on the Twitter machine at XXLonteXX. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. If you're not already, subscribe to the Propcast here on YouTube and also on the audio format, whether it's on Spotify or Apple. All right, we'll be back next week, NFL Week 13. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off, and always remember to let it ride.